The Los Angeles skyline shimmered under the warm May sun of 2025, its glass towers reflecting a city that thrived on dreams and reinvention. Just 2 miles from Hollywood's Walk of Fame, where stars etched in concrete told tales of triumph, the Raw Perspective Studio stood as a modern coliseum for verbal sparring. Inside, the air buzzed with electric anticipation, the kind that precedes a cultural moment, destined to ripple across screens and social feeds. The stage, a sleek marvel of design, pulsed with LED panels casting shades of silver and indigo, their light dancing like the heartbeat of a city that never slept. At 75 degrees, the California evening felt perfect, but within the studio's walls a storm was brewing, one that would pit hope against cynicism in a way America hadn't seen in years. Raw Perspectives was no ordinary talk show. Known for its high-stakes, confrontational debates, it drew millions of viewers weekly, eager to watch its cunning host, Nathan Blake, dismantle guests with razor-sharp provocations. Blake, a 42-year-old former journalist with a chiseled jaw and a reputation for turning interviews into viral spectacles, thrived on controversy. His show was a cultural lightning rod, dissecting everything from politics to personal beliefs, often leaving guests exposed and audiences polarized. In a nation grappling with post-pandemic struggles, gas prices hovering at $4.50 a gallon, unemployment hitting 25% in cities like Detroit and Cleveland, the show's raw edge resonated. It was a mirror to a divided America, where hope felt like a scarce commodity, and cynicism a default setting. Tonight, the studio's 300 seats were filled with a diverse crowd. Young influencers snapping selfies, middle-aged professionals clutching coffee cups, and retirees whispering about the guest of honor. The hum of expectation grew as the show's theme music, a pulsing electronic beat, filled the space, amplified by speakers hidden beneath the stage. Overhead, 1,000-watt lights cast a dramatic glow, illuminating the set's minimalist chairs and a single glass table where battles of wit were waged. The audience knew Blake's playbook: find a weakness, exploit it, and watch the guest unravel. But tonight's guest was no ordinary target. He was Keanu Reeves, a Hollywood icon whose quiet strength and enigmatic charm had made him a national treasure. Keanu stepped onto the stage with his signature composed stride, his shoulder-length hair framing a face that carried both wisdom and weariness. Dressed in a tailored black jacket and jeans, he exuded effortless cool, but it was the silver compass pendant necklace glinting against his chest that drew eyes. Unlike the cross necklace from his past interviews, this compass was a subtler symbol, its etched needle pointing north, a quiet nod to guidance and hope. To Keanu, it was deeply personal, a reminder of someone who had steered him through life's darkest storms. To the audience, it was a mystery, a spark of intrigue about a man who rarely shared his inner world. He acknowledged the crowd with a small, reserved smile, his dark eyes scanning the room before settling into the chair opposite Blake's. The audience erupted in applause, some rising to their feet, their cheers echoing off the studio's soundproof walls. Keanu's reputation preceded him, a legendary actor whose roles in films like The Matrix and John Wick had defined generations, yet a man admired more for his humanity than his stardom. Stories of his kindness, paying for strangers' meals, giving up subway seats, funding children's hospitals, had become modern folklore. In a world where celebrity scandals filled headlines, Keanu was an anomaly, a figure who seemed to live by an unspoken code of humility. But Raw Perspectives wasn't a place for pleasantries. Nathan Blake had other plans, and the compass pendant was his target. Blake adjusted his tie, a silk number that screamed status, and leaned forward, his piercing blue eyes locking onto Keanu. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice smooth, yet laced with menace. "Welcome to Raw Perspectives, where we strip away the veneer and get to the truth." The crowd roared, feeding off his theatrical flair. Tonight, we have a guest who needs no introduction, a man loved by millions, yet shrouded in mystery. Keanu Reeves, welcome. Keanu nodded, his voice steady. Thanks, Nathan. It's good to be here. But Blake's smile was predatory, a chess player, sizing up his opponent. He knew Keanu's calm demeanor was a fortress, and he intended to breach it. The stage lights dimmed, slightly, casting Blake's face in sharp relief as he pivoted to the pendant. Keanu, you're known for keeping things private, but that necklace, it's hard to miss. A compass, really, in 2025, when half the country's struggling to pay bills and the other half's glued to their phones? What's a compass supposed to mean? The question landed like a jab, its tone dripping with condescension. The audience stirred, some leaning forward, others exchanging glances. Blake's tactic was clear: paint Keanu's symbol as naive, a relic in a cynical age. But Keanu didn't flinch. His fingers brushed the pendant, a faint smile playing on his lips. It means something to me, Nathan, he said, his voice a quiet anchor in the storm Blake was trying to stir. Moments before the show, Keanu had met Lila Torres, an 18-year-old fan from East LA, 5 miles from the studio. Waiting in the crowd, outside her eyes, bright with nervous excitement, she'd shown him a compass tattoo on her wrist, inked after her brother's death from addiction. Your movies, your stories, they gave me hope, she'd said, her voice trembling. Keanu had listened, his hand on her shoulder, and promised, I'll carry that hope tonight. Now, as Blake's words hung in the air, Keanu's thoughts flickered to Lila, grounding him. This wasn't just about him. It was about her, and millions like her searching for direction in a fractured world. Blake sensed Keanu's stillness and doubled down. Come on, Keanu, he pressed, his smirk widening. Hope, direction. That's a nice Instagram caption, but let's be real. In a world where gas costs more than a movie ticket, and jobs are disappearing faster than glaciers, a compass feels like a fairy tale. The audience murmured, some nodding at Blake's bluntness, others clutching their own symbols, crosses, bracelets, tattoos, wondering how Keanu would respond. The stage was set for a verbal ambush, but what Blake didn't know was that Keanu was no ordinary guest. When Keanu Reeves stepped onto the Raw Perspective stage, he expected a conversation. But Nathan Blake had other plans, a verbal trap meant to unravel him. What would unfold wasn't just a debate. It was a moment that would redefine hope for millions, a spark that would light up a nation searching for its way. The California sunlight, warm at 75 degrees, bathed the Raw Perspective studio in a golden glow as Keanu Reeves stepped out of a sleek black SUV, his signature black jacket catching the late afternoon rays. The Los Angeles air carried the faint hum of traffic from Sunset Boulevard, 2 miles from Hollywood's Walk of Fame, where Keanu's star had glittered for decades. But today, his focus wasn't on fame. It was on the weight of the silver compass pendant resting against his chest, a quiet tribute to someone who had guided him through life's darkest moments, a loss he rarely spoke of even to those closest to him. The pendant's etched needle pointing north was more than jewelry. It was a promise to keep moving forward, no matter the storm. Outside the studio, a crowd of fans pressed against velvet ropes, their phones raised to capture a glimpse of the man whose kindness was as legendary as his films. Among them stood Lila Torres, an 18-year-old from East LA. 5 miles away, her brown eyes wide with nervous anticipation. Her faded denim jacket barely hid a compass tattoo on her wrist, inked after her brother's death from addiction 2 years prior. Keanu's movies. The Matrix, with its hope for awakening John Wick, with its raw resilience, had been her lifeline through grief. More than that, stories of Keanu's quiet generosity, like funding addiction recovery programs, had inspired her to believe in better days. When Keanu spotted her, holding a small sketch of a compass, he paused, ignoring the security guard's nudge to move inside. Lila, right? Keanu said, his voice soft but steady, reading the name on her sketch. She nodded, trembling, and showed him the tattoo. This is because of you, she whispered. You make me think there's still a way forward. Keanu's eyes softened, a flicker of his own pain, surfacing before he masked it with a smile. He touched the pendant briefly, as if connecting her story to his own. "I'll carry your story tonight," he promised, his hand resting on her shoulder for a moment, before he turned toward the studio doors. Lila clutched the sketch, tears brimming, unaware that her words would anchor Keanu in the battle to come. Inside, the Raw Perspective studio buzzed with energy. Its 300-seat audience, a cross-section of America in 2025, college students in hoodies, tech workers scrolling X, and retirees adjusting hearing aids. The stage, bathed in 1,000-watt lights, pulsed with LED panels in silver and indigo, their colors shifting like a digital heartbeat. The show's reputation for viral debates drew a diverse crowd, some hoping for drama, others for insight, all aware of the man at the center, Nathan Blake. At 42, Blake was a former investigative reporter whose career had once soared, exposing corporate fraud with a Pulitzer-worthy sting. But a public fallout when a whistleblower he trusted fabricated evidence had left him disgraced, his name synonymous with betrayal. Now, as host of Raw Perspectives, he channeled that bitterness into a provocative style, tearing down guests to rebuild his relevance. Keanu's compass pendant, spotted in pre-show research, was his latest target, a chance to spark controversy and claw back the spotlight. As the show's electronic theme music blared, Blake strode onto the stage, his tailored suit and silk tie screaming confidence. His chiseled features and piercing blue eyes masked the cynicism that fueled him, a belief that hope was a lie sold by dreamers. "I learned the hard way," he'd once told a producer, his tone bitter. "Trusting hope gets you burned." The audience of 300 roared, feeding off his charisma, their cheers bouncing off the soundproof walls. Overhead cameras swiveled, ready to capture every flinch, every misstep. Blake raised a hand, silencing the crowd with practiced ease. "Welcome to Raw Perspectives," he declared, his voice a velvet blade, where we cut through the noise and face the hard truths. The crowd leaned in, sensing the storm brewing. Keanu emerged from the wings, his composed stride unshaken by the spotlight. His black jacket and jeans contrasted with the stage's high-tech sheen, but the compass pendant gleamed under the lights, drawing gasps from the audience. He settled into the chair opposite Blake, crossing his legs with a relaxed air, though his fingers brushed the pendant, an unconscious habit, signaling its weight. The crowd erupted again, some chanting Keanu, while others whispered about the necklace, its meaning a puzzle in a man known for privacy. Blake's smirk widened his eyes, locking onto Keanu like a hunter sizing up prey. "Keanu Reeves," he said, leaning forward. "It's an honor to have you." Keanu nodded, his voice calm, yet steady. "Thanks, Nathan. Glad to be here." But the air crackled with tension, the audience sensing Blake's agenda. Blake wasted no time, his tone shifting from welcoming to predatory. "Let's talk about that necklace," he said, gesturing to the compass pendant with a dismissive flick. "A cute trinket for dreamers, isn't it? In a world of hard truths. Gas at $4.50 a gallon, jobs vanishing faster than you can say recession. What's a compass supposed to do?" The question landed like a dart, its condescension sharp. The audience stirred, some nodding at Blake's bluntness, others clutching their own symbols, a cross, a locket, a bracelet, waiting for Keanu's response. Keanu smiled faintly, his fingers brushing the pendant again, its silver cool against his skin. "It's personal, Nathan," he said, his voice a quiet anchor. "It reminds me of someone who showed me the way when I was lost." Blake's eyes gleamed, sensing an opening. "Personal," he echoed, his smirk widening. "Come on, Keanu, you're a public figure. That compass sends a message, hope, direction, whatever you call it. But let's be real, in 2025, when half of America's scraping by hope feels like a luxury for the rich." The audience murmured, split between agreement and unease. A young woman in the front row, her own compass tattoo hidden under a sleeve, leaned forward, thinking of Lila. Keanu's gaze flickered to the crowd, Lila's words echoing in his mind. "There's still a way forward." His calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to Blake's edge, a fortress Blake was determined to breach. The stage was set, the confrontation ignited, and the nation watching from their screens knew this was no ordinary interview. The raw perspective studio pulsed with tension, the LED panels flickering in shades of silver and indigo like a storm brewing over Los Angeles. The 300-strong audience, illuminated by 1,000-watt lights, leaned forward in their seats, the air thick with anticipation. It was May 2025, and America was a nation on edge. 1 in 4 families struggling to afford groceries at $5 a loaf, global unrest dominating headlines, and a pervasive cynicism seeping into daily life. On stage, Nathan Blake leaned into his role as provocateur, his piercing blue eyes fixed on Keanu Reeves, whose silver compass pendant gleamed defiantly against his black jacket. Blake's smirk was a weapon honed by years of dismantling guests, and he sensed blood in the water. "So, Keanu," he said, his voice dripping with mockery, "this compass of yours, what's it pointing to fantasy land?" The jab landed sharp and deliberate, framing hope as a naive escape in a world of hard truths. The audience murmured, their reactions splitting the room. A young man in a hoodie nodded, his phone already open to X, ready to post Blake's quip. A middle-aged woman in the third row shifted uncomfortably, her fingers grazing a locket that held her own symbol of hope. Keanu, seated with his legs crossed, remained an island of calm, his dark eyes steady as they met Blake's. The compass pendant, a quiet tribute to someone who had guided him through personal loss, felt heavier, now its etched needle, a reminder of resilience. He brushed it lightly, a faint smile playing on his lips. "A compass doesn't make the storm disappear, Nathan," he said, his voice low but unshakable. "It helps you walk through it." The words hung in the air, simple yet profound, cutting through Blake's cynicism like a beacon. The audience stilled, some leaning closer, sensing the shift. Blake bristled, his fingers gripping the armrest of his chair, the silk of his tie catching the light as he leaned forward. He wasn't used to being countered so effortlessly, especially not by a guest who refused to take the bait. "Walk through it," he scoffed, his tone sharpening. "Keanu, let's be real. In 2025, with half of America scraping by on $20 an hour or less, hope's a nice word, but it doesn't pay the bills." He gestured to the crowd, playing to their frustrations. "You think a compass helps the single mom working 2 jobs or the kid in Chicago who can't afford college?" The audience murmured again, some clapping in agreement, their faces etched with the weariness of a nation battered by economic despair. Blake's words tapped into a raw nerve, his cynicism a mirror to a country questioning its optimism. Keanu's gaze didn't waver, but his thoughts flickered to Lila Torres, the 18-year-old from East LA, whose compass tattoo and story of loss had anchored him before the show. Her words, "You make me think there's still a way forward," echoed now, fueling his resolve. He tilted his head slightly, his voice steady but piercing. "When did you lose your direction, Nathan?" The question was a quiet thunderbolt, flipping the script with surgical precision. The audience gasped, a ripple of surprise spreading through the room. Blake's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, his fingers tightening on the chair. The question wasn't just a challenge. It was a mirror reflecting the betrayal that had scarred him, a whistleblower's lie that had cost him his career and faith in anything beyond cold facts. Blake recovered quickly, forcing a chuckle, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Nice try, Keanu," he said, his voice laced with venom. "But this isn't about me. It's about that trinket you're wearing, selling hope to a world that's done with fairy tales." He leaned closer, his tone mocking. "Hope's a crutch for the weak, a distraction from reality. You, of all people, Mr. Hollywood, should know better." The accusation was a dagger designed to provoke, to make Keanu flinch. The audience held its breath, some nodding at Blake's audacity, others clutching their own symbols. A bracelet, a ring waiting for Keanu to crack. Keanu paused, his eyes flickering with a rare vulnerability, as if Blake's words had grazed a wound. The studio lights seemed to dim, the indigo panels casting shadows across his face. For a moment, the weight of his own losses, loved ones, Dreams battles, fought in silence, surfaced in his gaze. Then, in a move that silenced the room, he lifted his sleeve, revealing a small compass tattoo on his forearm, its needle mirroring the pendant. Alongside it, faded scars from his motorcycle days told a story of survival. "This isn't just mine," he said, his voice soft but resolute. "It's for people like a girl I met today fighting to believe tomorrow's worth it." He paused, letting the words land. Lila from East LA lost her brother. She's still standing. "That's not weakness, Nathan. That's strength." The audience gasped, the sound reverberating off the soundproof walls. A young woman in the front row, her own compass tattoo hidden under a sleeve, wiped away a tear. A man in the back, skeptical, until now, stopped typing on his phone, his cynicism shaken. Blake faltered his smirk, fading, his jaw tightening as he realized he'd miscalculated. Keanu's tattoo wasn't just a symbol. It was a testament tying his personal scars to Lila's story and countless others. The room felt smaller, the air charged with a shift no one had anticipated. Blake's usual playbook, mock, provoke, dominate, was unraveling, and the audience could feel it. To break the tension, Keanu leaned back, a playful glint in his eyes. "Nathan, that tie's screaming louder than your cynicism," he said, his tone light but pointed. "Who's sending the message now?" The audience chuckled, the laughter rippling through the crowd like a release valve. A college student in the fifth row grinned, already memeing the moment on X. Blake forced a smile, but his fingers twitched, betraying his frustration. The jab was subtle, but it landed, humanizing Keanu and exposing Blake's performative edge. The debate had escalated, but it was no longer Blake's game. Keanu's calm, his vulnerability, and his connection to Lila had tilted the stage, setting the stage for a confrontation that would redefine hope for a nation watching in real time. The Raw Perspective studio in Los Angeles, its LED panels pulsing in muted silver and indigo, felt like a pressure cooker in May 2025. The 300 audience members, bathed in the glow of 1,000-watt lights, were riveted, their breaths shallow, as the debate between Keanu Reeves and Nathan Blake reached its zenith. The air, cooled to 70 degrees by the studio's humming air conditioning, carried a charge that mirrored America's fractured pulse hope, clashing with cynicism in a nation where 1 in 4 struggled to afford basics like 6-a-gallon milk. Keanu, his silver compass pendant glinting against his black jacket, sat with an unshakable calm, his tattoo reveal moments earlier still reverberating. Nathan Blake, his silk tie slightly askew, gripped his chair, his usual predatory smirk replaced by a flicker of unease. Keanu's question, "When did you lose your direction?" had pierced Blake's armor, and the audience sensed the tide turning. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes locking onto Blake's with a quiet intensity. "You talk about hard truths, Nathan," he said, his voice steady, but weighted with conviction. "But what's harder than choosing hope when everything's falling apart?" The words landed like a thunderclap, slicing through the studio's charged silence. They weren't just a rebuttal. They were a challenge, reframing hope as an act of courage in a world battered by economic despair and global unrest. The audience stirred, some clutching their own symbols, a locket, a ring, a faded tattoo, while others froze, caught in the gravity of Keanu's gaze. Blake's jaw tightened, his fingers twitching as he struggled to maintain his composure. For the first time, the man who thrived on dismantling guests was cornered, his cynicism exposed as a shield rather than a sword. Blake opened his mouth to retort, but something cracked. His voice, usually sharp and calculated, faltered as he let slip a raw confession. "I trusted hope once," he said, his tone bitter, eyes darting to the floor. "Got me nowhere." The admission hung heavy, a glimpse into the betrayal that had shattered him, a whistleblower's lie that had derailed his career as a reporter. The audience gasped softly, the vulnerability unexpected from a man who weaponized hard truths. Keanu's expression softened, a flicker of empathy crossing his face, but he didn't let the moment pass. "Maybe it's not about where it takes you," He said, his voice gentle yet resolute. It's about who you become. The words were a beacon, tying the compass pendant to a universal truth. Hope wasn't a destination, but a transformation, a choice to grow through pain. The studio erupted, the sound a chaotic blend of awe and division. Half the crowd cheered their applause, shaking the soundproof walls, some tearing up as Keanu's words echoed their own quiet battles. A veteran in the front row, his weathered hand gripping a compass keychain from his Navy days, nodded silently, tears tracing his lined face. A young woman with a compass tattoo inspired by Lila Torres's story clapped furiously, her heart swelling with validation. But the other half whispered skeptically, their murmurs a counterpoint to the fervor. A tech worker in the back, his phone glowing with X typed furiously, Blake's not wrong, hopes overhyped. $20 an hour barely covers rent. The tension mirrored America's divided 2025 soul, where optimism and disillusionment wrestled in every corner, from coffee shops to congressional halls. The polarized reactions, raw and unscripted, painted a vivid portrait of a nation at a crossroads. The studio's lights dimmed slightly, casting Blake's face in shadow, as Keanu's words hung heavy in the air. Blake tried to pivot, his usual sharpness dulled by the weight of his own confession. "Well, Keanu," he said, forcing a chuckle that lacked conviction, "you're good at spinning stories, I'll give you that." He gestured to the audience, attempting to reclaim control. "But let's not pretend a compass fixes the real-world jobs, lost families struggling." His voice wavered, the edge blunted, and the crowd sensed it. A college student in the fifth row, who'd laughed at Blake's earlier jabs, now sat silent, her skepticism shaken. Blake's attempt to redirect fell flat, his words sounding hollow against Keanu's grounded authenticity. Keanu didn't press further, his silence more powerful than any rebuttal. His compass pendant caught a stray beam of light, its needle a quiet testament to resilience. The audience, still buzzing from his earlier tattoo reveal linked to Lila's fight, and his own scars, felt the shift. Blake, sensing the moment slipping, tried one last jab. "Hope's a nice idea, Keanu, but it's not a plan." Keanu tilted his head, a faint smile surfacing. "Neither's cynicism, Nathan, but one keeps you moving." The line, delivered with understated precision, drew a ripple of laughter and scattered applause, the crowd marveling at Keanu's ability to disarm without malice. Blake's defeat was palpable. His clenched jaw, caught by the swiveling cameras, betrayed a man outmaneuvered. He straightened his tie, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, Keanu," he said, his voice tight, "you've given us something to think about." The abruptness of his words signaled surrender, a stark contrast to his usual commanding exits. He turned to the camera, his grin strained. "We'll be right back after this break." The show's electronic theme music blared, but it couldn't drown out the audience's energy, half cheering, half debating, all captivated by the verbal duel that had just unfolded. The veteran in the front row stood, his compass keychain glinting as he clapped slowly, while the tech worker in the back posted another X update. "Okay, Keanu's got a point. Maybe hope's not dead." The studio's air felt electric, the indigo panels pulsing like a heartbeat as the segment ended. Keanu leaned back, his posture relaxed, but his eyes still carrying the weight of Lila's story and countless others. Blake's confession, Keanu's response, and the crowd's divided reactions had transformed the debate into something bigger, a mirror to America's soul, grappling with whether to choose hope or surrender to despair. The cameras lingered on Blake's clenched jaw, a silent admission of defeat, and on Keanu's compass pendant, a symbol now etched in the nation's consciousness. The tide had turned, not just in the studio but in the hearts of those watching, setting the stage for a cultural moment that would ripple far beyond Los Angeles. As the raw perspectives studio lights faded and the electronic theme music signaled the end of the broadcast, the Los Angeles night outside settled into a balmy 80-degree mirror of stars, piercing through the city's skyline 2 miles from Hollywood's Walk of Fame. Inside, the 300 audience members buzzed with a mix of awe and debate. Their polarized reactions, cheers, tears, skeptical whispers still echoing from Keanu Reeves's climactic exchange with Nathan Blake. Keanu, his silver compass pendant, catching a final glint of stage light, rose from his chair with his signature composure. He nodded to the crew, shook a few hands and slipped through a side exit, declining the swarm of reporters waiting outside. Their microphones thrust forward voices shouting, "Keanu, how do you feel about Blake's defeat? What's the compass mean to you?" But Keanu, true to his enigmatic nature, offered only a soft smile before disappearing into a waiting car, the night swallowing him like a secret. Inside the studio, Nathan Blake retreated to his dressing room, the weight of his defeat etched in his clenched jaw. The man who'd built a career on verbal ambushes sat alone scrolling X on his phone, where sure Keanu Compass trended with 3 million posts within hours. TikTokers had already remixed Keanu's line, "A compass doesn't make the storm disappear. It helps you walk through it," into motivational clips, their vibrant edits, racking up 15 million views. A meme of Blake's stunned face, captioned, "When Keanu rewrites your script," exploded across Instagram, hitting 1 million likes. Blake's fingers hovered over a post from a fan, "Thank you, Keanu, for reminding us hope isn't naive." Subscribed to Raw Perspectives to see more like this. The words stung, a reminder that his attempt to dismantle Keanu had backfired, turning him into a footnote in a cultural moment. Yet beneath his frustration, a seed of doubt took root. Had he misjudged hope? The lesson of the night was clear: hope, far from a crutch, was a deliberate act of strength, a choice to find direction amid chaos. Keanu's words, rooted in his own losses, and Lila Torres's story, had reframed cynicism as a surrender, not a victory. The audience, both in the studio and across America, felt it. On X, a veteran from Seattle, 500 miles from LA, tweeted, "Keanu's compass reminded me of my Navy days. Hope kept me alive. Thank you." A single mom in Chicago struggling on $20 an hour posted a video to TikTok, her voice cracking. "This show changed me. Keanu's right. Hope's what keeps us going." Subscribed. The outpouring wasn't just gratitude. It was a call to action, urging others to join the conversation by subscribing to Raw Perspectives' channel, where moments like this could spark change. Keanu, ever the reluctant hero, broke his silence 3 days later with a single X post. "A compass doesn't promise calm seas. It reminds us we can find our way. Share yours." The simplicity of the message belied its impact, igniting a firestorm of response. Fans launched a Compass of Hope campaign, creating a website where thousands shared stories of resilience, veterans overcoming PTSD, teachers inspiring students. Despite budget cuts, teens like Lila battling despair. Temporary compass tattoos became a symbol of solidarity, spotted at rallies in cities like Seattle and Atlanta, 2,000 miles apart. The campaign raised $2 million for mental health charities, with events drawing crowds under banners reading "Find Your Way." Lila's own contribution, a tearful video thanking Keanu for carrying her story, went viral, with 5 million views, her compass tattoo a beacon for others. "Keanu showed me hope's real," she said, her voice steady. "Thank you for seeing me." The cultural impact rippled far beyond the studio's soundproof walls. News outlets like CNN, headquartered 2,500 miles away in Atlanta, dubbed it the interview that broke the internet, replaying clips of Keanu's tattoo reveal and Blake's stunned silence. On Reddit, threads dissected every moment, with one user writing, "Keanu didn't just win, he changed how we talk about hope." Sub to Raw Perspectives for more. The campaign's website logged stories from every corner of America, from a Detroit factory worker, 18-hour, to a Miami nurse working 60-hour weeks. The lesson, hope as a transformative choice, resonated in a nation weary of division, where 25% unemployment in some cities had eroded optimism. Keanu's compass, once a personal talisman, became a national symbol, its needle pointing not to a place, but to a mindset. Blake, humbled by the backlash and introspection, returned to Raw Perspectives, A week later, his usual bravado tempered. Facing the camera, he admitted, "Maybe I misjudged hope." Keanu showed us it's not about ignoring reality. It's about facing it. The apology, rare for a man who thrived on confrontation, trended on X with 500,000 likes, fans praising his vulnerability. "Thank you, Blake, for owning it," one wrote. "Subscribe to see where this goes." The moment marked a shift not just for Blake, but for the show, which saw a surge in subscribers eager for more raw, transformative dialogues. The audience's gratitude, expressed through comments and subscriptions, underscored the night's enduring lesson: hope, when shared, could bridge even the deepest divides. Keanu didn't just win a debate that night in Los Angeles, under a sky where stars shone brighter than the city's $4.50 a gallon gas pumps. He started a movement, one that asked America, "What guides you through the storm?" The Compass of Hope campaign grew its stories, filling community centers and social feeds, reminding a fractured nation that resilience was a collective act. From Lila's viral video to Blake's humbled admission, the impact was undeniable, a testament to the power of one man's quiet strength. The lesson lingered. Hope wasn't a passive wish, but now it is a bold choice forged in pain and shared in community. As fans subscribed to Raw Perspectives, thanking Keanu and Blake for a conversation that changed them, they carried the question forward, inviting others to reflect. What's your compass, and where will it lead you?